Well, the Mariners are not dead just yet, but a fourth consecutive heartbreaking loss has basically left them with no room for error at this point. Talk about that, and then we'll be joined by Mariners pitcher Penn Murfee to discuss his latest venture for a great cause coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, September 26, 2023. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. On the show today, we'll discuss last night's 5-1 loss to the Houston Astros and talk about what this means for the Mariners with 6 games to go before the end of the regular season. Then we'll have a quick sit down with Mariners reliever Penn Murfee to check in on the progress of his injury rehab and talk about his charity auction he's currently running with Children's Home Society of Washington. But first, Colby, we unfortunately got to get into last night's game between the Astros and the Mariners. You can catch game 2 of this series, by the way, on the Mariners hometown broadcast of SiriusXM via the SXM app. But yes, we need to talk about game 1 of this series. I'm sorry, folks. We have to do it. It's our jobs. We got to talk about it. So rough night for Luis Castillo on the bump. Rough night for the offense against Justin Verlander. It was just bad night across the board for the Mariners. No silver linings, really. And we're in do or die time now. And we'll talk about, if the Mariners are actually dead now, all that good stuff, and a little bit later on in the show. But Colby, where do you want to start with last night's game?
I'd rather not start anywhere with it. Yeah, it was just a abject failure across the board. Offense was non-existent. Verlander, not the guy that we saw even 2 years ago. Fastballs 93, 94. He was hanging curveballs, and the slider was pretty good last night, but he was not, his stuff and his command was not good enough that he should have been able to pitch into the ninth with only really one serious threat. The Mariners let him off the hook. He was good, don't get me wrong, but and you probably weren't going to score 5 or 6 off of him like you would need to win this game, but there were certainly, pitches to hit, and there were certainly opportunities to score, 3-4 runs, give yourself a good shot, and they didn't. So the offense was putrid, pretty much up and down the board. Very few players had, even a good at bat or two. So that was disappointing, but I think, Castillo is probably the big story here. He was not good, and we talked about yesterday how you kind of need that, Toronto playoff version of Luis Castillo to show up here in the most important game of the year, and he did not. There were glimpses of it. He had, 3 or 4 innings where he looked like that guy, and he was 99, and he was on the corners on the inside part with the 2-seamer, and he was getting bad chases with the slider, and you're like, wow, this is the guy that we're paying $130 million to. And then the other innings, it was everything's in the middle of the plate. It's belt high, or it's right down the pipe. Aside from the Jordan home run, pretty much every single hit that Castillo gave up was a pitch right down the middle of the plate, and you can't do that against these guys. So Castillo wasn't good enough. The offense was putrid and looked, we know they're not, but they looked completely disinterested in playing in that game. That's how ugly the swings were. That's how bad the game plan was. Just abject failure across the board. And this team is on life support right now in terms of the playoff race. And it's hard to watch. It really is hard to watch. And, I don't think anybody's blaming anybody for checking out early from this game or not watching tonight's game. Maybe just give yourself that mental break, because this team is playing really bad baseball right now. And, they started the month with everything they could have ever hoped to accomplish this year right in front of them. And it's not like any of the teams just, blew by you. You gave it to them. You gave away 3 playoff spots in this month, and last night is a pretty good indicator of why. Offense toothless, a lot of bad swings, a lot of bad approaches, a lot of bad game plans, bad execution, and your starting pitching, which is what your team is built on, was bad again. So, for Castillo, it's been a couple weeks. I know he had some nice box scores in his last few starts, but you watch those games. He was in the middle of the plate. He was getting away with a lot of stuff that he otherwise wouldn't against a good lineup, and Houston proved that last night. So, yeah, this team is coming apart at the seams, and when you're a team that's built on pitching and your pitching goes to nothing for an entire month, you're probably screwed. And that's what's happening right now. The offense, again, while inconsistent, has basically been good enough. They were good enough in Texas this weekend, the offense, to win 2 of those games. And the pitching wasn't. The pitching gave you no shot. So yeah, right now the pitching is devastating because you just don't have the offense that's going to score 6-7 runs a night to make up for bad starting pitching. And that's what the Mariners have gotten this month. And that's what they got last night from Castillo. And again, it's frustrating because there were legitimate 3 innings, maybe 4, where Castillo looked like the best we've ever seen him. And unfortunately, the other 2 innings, he was, a double-A call-up. That's what he looked like. So, yeah, really tough to watch. Really tough to feel excited about tonight's game, even though technically, they still control their own destiny, as weird as that is to say. But, last night was a disaster from start to finish.
Yeah, on the pitching front in particular, I mean, part of it is obviously you're relying heavily on 2 rookies who are stretched well beyond their career highs and innings, but it's also your horses. Luis Castillo, I know you've won, before last night, you won his last 10 starts, but if you've been paying attention, he has had some ugly starts in there where he's kind of gotten away with it. And I have voiced my concern off of that after his last start in Oakland, or maybe his start in Tampa. I forget which one, but I asked the question, like, how is he going to be able to survive against the Rangers and the Astros of the world pitching like that? And unfortunately, we saw that come to fruition last night. The hope was that you would get playoff Luis Castillo, that eventually he would work some things out. His slider has been a bit of an issue as of late. It's mostly been fastball heavy. And I mean, the fastball looked great last night, especially to open up the game. And even after he gave up that double to Jordan, he was able to work out of that inning scoreless, and I felt pretty good about it. His stuff looked good. His command, for the most part, was pretty good in that inning. Like, I felt like we were actually going to get that kind of elite start out of Castillo. But then, you get to the second inning, and then Julio, the ball kicks off of Julio's glove. Abreu ends up going to third to lead off the inning. Castillo gets the next 2 guys out, and it's like, okay. And then he gets Dubon to a 2-strike count, but then he loses him, and Dubon's able to park that ball in front of Julio. And while that was incredibly disappointing, I still would have felt pretty good if he was able to get out of that just, with 1 run allowed, but to give up 2 more runs after that, after being a strike away from a scoreless inning, I mean, that really killed the vibes in that building. And then you get your best opportunity of the night in the 4th inning offensively against Verlander with bases loaded, 1 out. I know. It's the Mariners. We should expect that, bases loaded. That's where the other team has them, right where they want them, all that, blah, 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 whatever. But you have the top of the order due up. You have Julio up to bat with 1 out, bases loaded. You have to convert in those situations. And Julio ends up grounding into a soft double play. Julio's 5 for his last 32. That's not the reason that you're struggling right now. It's not the reason for all these losses and all the frustration and all that, but it's a big contribution to it. I think the biggest factor here is obviously the pitching. It's Castillo, it's Kirby not pitching up to their standards. It's Miller and Wu just looking utterly gassed. The bullpen struggling, but Julio, the way that your roster and your lineup is constructed, and I said this during the first half when he was not really hitting to the standard that we hold him to, that he has to be the guy. And right now he's just not being that guy. And especially during this stretch, you need Julio to be a star. You need him to carry things, because back half of your lineup, you have no idea what you're going to get most nights. And even with your top 4, there's your top 4 hitters, there's a lot of variance there. I mean, I think you feel pretty good about JP, but you You don't know what you're going to get out of Cal. You don't know what you're going to get out of Teo. And Gino and Ty France are in really dark places right now. So a lot, unfortunately, whether it's fair or not, falls on the shoulders of Julio, and he's just not coming through right now. So, all of those things combined creates the result that we're seeing now. And so that's going to create a lot of interesting discussion as we go into the off season, whether that starts on Monday or hopefully after a playoff run. And we won't bore you with that because we'll have a whole lot of time to reflect on the season and what's gone wrong here. But I'll just leave you on this. And look, again, they're not dead yet, so we're not going to jump to any conclusions here. There's definitely a path here for them to get back into the postseason, but right now what we're seeing and how things look like they're going to ultimately end here, this isn't as simple as pointing the finger at one particular entity. This is a failure across the board. It's the players, it's service, it's Dipoto and Hollander, it's John Stanton. Everyone's at fault here. Everyone's at fault. And again, we'll dive into all of that over the course of the off season. But folks that are, fans that are saying fire service and all that stuff, it's just, that's an oversimplification of what the issue is here, and that's not going to fix the problem ultimately. And we'll dive into the reasons that is, on a future show and future shows. But yeah, that's just kind of my general thoughts coming out of this right now. It's heartbreaking, man. It's hard to watch. I'm having a hard time watching it. I tuned out last night after it went 3-0. Then I tuned back in for the bases loaded, and when I saw Julio ground into the double play, I decided, nope, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna watch football. I'm gonna watch tonight, obviously, but it's hard to watch them slowly die like they are right now, and hopefully they're able to get it together here, because as wild as it is to say, there is still time for them to turn it around, but they have to win tonight. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn. Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges, however, with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales, and we built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/LOCKEDON for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/LOCKEDON to get started. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Astros game 2 of this series tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. And I was reading through the comments of yesterday's episode, and I saw, I believe, someone named Bert, maybe it was Bert or Brett. Sorry if I got your name wrong. Say, I'm superstitious. Ever since Ty took the hat off, we haven't won. So you know what? I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. So I'm putting the hat back on for today, and we'll just see if it works. We'll just see. Colby, do you think it's going to work? Do you think the Mariners are going to win tonight? Is there any reason to think the Mariners are going to win tonight?
Sure, but it's not because of a hat.
It might be.
I would tell Bert or Brett to grow up. There's no such thing as curses.
Right.
And I stopped believing witchcraft when I was, able to put together a thought or two, but whatever, to each their own. There's reason to think they can win. I mean, in theory, they have the pitching advantage tonight, but we know how much that's been worth this year. So, especially with George Kirby recently. So Javier is going to throw a ton of breaking balls. Why would he throw anything else? The Mariners haven't been able to touch sliders or curveballs recently. And that is kind of what Javier is good at. So I would imagine we'll see a ton of those, and their ability to, score runs tonight is going to be based off of how they handle the breaking balls. So It's possible. Kirby has really good numbers against Houston in his career. He's not pitching that well right now, but it only takes one start to turn things around.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a shot. Their backs are against the wall. They're fighting for their lives. So there's definitely a shot that they can win tonight's game. It was kind of the one that we looked at and thought like, yeah, they definitely have like a pretty sizable pitching advantage in theory. But again, that hasn't been worth much. So yeah, they have a shot to win tonight, and they absolutely have to. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out. Do they press? Do they get outside of themselves? Do they chase more than they usually do? Do they, or is Kirby overthrowing and therefore his command is off a little bit because there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress in these games, and especially when you're the team that was the front runner who has now been passed by everybody. Like you're desperate. So we'll see how they handle all that tonight. Obviously, they were that team last night too, and they didn't handle it well. So we'll see if they can bounce back. But yeah, they have a shot to win tonight. Javier is the guy that you can get, but it's. You saw the game plan that Houston's going to, deploy against this lineup. They're going to throw a ton of curveballs and sliders and dare the Mariners to hit them. And so far, the Mariners have been unable to do that, for most of this year. So we'll see if they can tonight. And obviously, it comes down to do we get, Baltimore George Kirby? Do we get 2022 playoff George Kirby? Or do we get August 15th or whatever, August 16th through September 20th, George Kirby? Which Kirby are we going to get? That'll dictate a lot of, what the Mariners have to do. And, I guess the good news is that your high leverage arms are all good to go. They're well rested and you can kind of go from there. But yeah, basically their season tonight will be determined whether or not they can, do damage on breaking balls or lay off of them and get to the fastball when they do get it. So we'll see, but they certainly can win. It's just hard to feel like they're going to based off of, the last 30 games or so.
Yeah. So if you win tonight and tomorrow, you're in a playoff spot heading into the Rangers series. So that's the good news. That's the best outcome here. The thing is, you're going to have to rely on Bryce Miller tomorrow. So that's
pretty sure it's Gilbert tomorrow.
Is it Gilbert tomorrow?
I think it's Gilbert versus Framber tomorrow.
Oh, did they move it around? They moved it around? Okay. So yeah. If you win the next two games, you're in a playoff spot. You're still going to have to take care of business at least a little bit against Texas, or get some help from Arizona. If you lose tonight and or tomorrow, you're going to need to have a good series against Texas, and you're going to need some help from Arizona as well. So, it mathematically it wouldn't be over, right? But I think we can all come to our own conclusions on that front. So we'll see how it goes. You have to win tonight. Tonight's a very big game. Scott Service even said as much last night in his post game presser. Real quick on that, a lot is being made about no one asking him questions after he made his opening statement and his presser. Is there any takeaway from that? No,
I didn't even know that happened. So that shows you how little concern I have. I will say right now, the MLB app is showing that it's Miller. I thought it was Gilbert, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Okay. But yeah, if you win the next two, then you're going into the weekend set at the very least in playoff position, because even if you lose on Thursday against the Rangers, you are still tied with Houston and you still have the tiebreaker over them.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, then you go into the weekend and all you have to do is win the same number of games as Houston, which means if Houston gets swept by Arizona, you're in no matter what if you win the next two. If Houston wins 1 out of 3, you just have to win 1 out of 3 against Texas to get in. So you're very much alive. And if you win the next two, you're very much in the driver's seat of getting into the playoffs. But again, you have to win the next two. If you lose the next two, your season's over, because at that point you have to sweep Texas and Houston has to get swept. That's your only shot. If you win one of the next two, then Thursday becomes really critical, because then you can knock that down to a game, and then you have to get, you have to win one more game than Houston that weekend. So if Houston wins 2 out of 3, you got to win 3. So really what it comes down to is you have to win tonight, you have to win tomorrow, or your season is 99% over. So yeah, it's critically important, and a lot of pressure on one game, but that's the position you put yourselves in, them being the Mariners themselves. So it's tough to feel too bad for the players when the reason that they're in this position themselves is because of them. Like, it's their fault. So step up or shut up is pretty much where we've gotten to. And it's, you're one bad inning away from shut up time. And that's going to be hard pill to swallow, but it's looking more and more like the reality every single day.
Yeah. So we'll see. All right, let's switch gears here. Let's talk to Penn Murfee, who's got some cool stuff going on. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Jace Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jace Medical is your solution for that. Just fill out our online form and one of our board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then they will send your prescriptions to one of our partner pharmacies where your Jace order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. Everyone should feel empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical plus an additional $20 off by using the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Joining us now is one of the key members of the Mariners' incredible 2022 bullpen and has been sorely missed this year as he works his way back from injury. It's Penn Murfee, everyone. Welcome to the show, Penn. How's it going?
Doing great, Ty. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate you coming on here. Penn, you're with us today because you're collaborating with Children's Home Society of Washington, which I know is a very important cause to you. You're doing an auction that is running right now until this Friday, September 29th. So tell us a bit more about that and why you chose to work with CHSW.
Yeah, so I've had a soft spot in my heart a long time for foster children and children in need. And, I've had it on my heart for a while trying to get involved. And I think this year finally had some momentum and the help of my agency. And we were able to make that partnership. And I wanted to do an auction. I originally had some thought to get music involved. I'm a huge guitar player. I love music. And, Seattle's got quite the music background with, Pearl Jam, Jimi Hendrix, Soundgarden, a lot of music culture there. And I kind of wanted to meld the two. And this year, being the first run at it, we're going to try and incorporate the music later on. But yeah, it's a first time partnership with them. Hopefully we can keep that running and make it a yearly thing. But we're super excited. We've gotten a lot of good traction so far, and it's been a joy to work with their team. They've been wonderful, and it's a great cause. We're going to get some good supplies and help to some people in need, and help out some of the kids in underserved communities in the greater Seattle area.
That's awesome. So some of the items up for auction include a couple of your gloves, some cleats from guys like Julio and JP, even a Cal Raleigh bat, all of which are autographed, of course. What's your favorite thing you've got listed on there? I'm curious.
They're all great items. I think guys gave what they could and what they were willing to put up for the auction. The gloves of mine were kind of a little outlandish. I got some funny looks in the bullpen, bringing out some crazy colors and everything, but I wanted to make sure that they were game used and authentic and everything like that. So, it's a two-way kind of thing. I think it's a win-win. Some of the fans get access to some gear that they might not, necessarily be able to get their hands on every day. It's not like you get to see a Cal Raleigh signed bat on eBay or Craigslist every single day, So if I had to pick, though, Cal Raleigh's bat's pretty cool. I think I would want that hanging on my bedroom wall when I was a kid, especially after the big home run last year and him being my roommate and just really good buddy of mine. That's who I get to throw most of my pitches to. So if I was a younger Penn Murfee, I think I'd want that one. But we got a lot of great stuff. Everything is game used. There's a couple turfs on there. Guys aren't necessarily playing in tennis shoes, but everything there, you can see the dirt stains. Cal's bat is crispy, brand new. That's the only one. But yeah, everything there, my belt even. We tried to scrap together some fun stuff for the fans. So
Yeah, I love the green glove. Green glove is sick. That's
mint.
Yeah. Yeah, the mint glove. Yeah, it's sick. I like it.
That's the one that got some funny looks. Like, dang, Penn, you're really going for it there, huh? But yeah, I got 44 gloves. You know, they've been on the hands of a lot of pro guys, especially pitchers. They were excellent to work with. They're fantastic. I love the gloves too. You know, a lot of times pitchers' gloves, it's kind of just how big can you get away with to hide the ball, and it's
Right.
you know, our job isn't catching the baseball so much, but 44 gloves makes a really dang good baseball glove. And they got a lot of cool customizable options. So at the beginning of the year, I tried to spruce it up a little bit, make it attractive to the fans, because I knew that I wanted to run this auction and get that going.
So all the information for Penn's auction will be in the description of this episode. So please give it a look. We'd really appreciate that. So Penn, I want to switch gears here and ask you a little bit about you, if that's all right. Obviously this year didn't go the way you had hoped. How's the rehab process going? And more importantly, how are you doing in general?
Man, I'm good. I really miss competing. I miss being with the boys. I miss, you know, going out and playing for the fans in Seattle. I miss the city. I miss everything about it. Obviously, like you said, not the way I wanted it to go, but you know what? I have a faith that everything happens for a reason, and I'm right where I need to be in a weird way. But rehab's coming along great. I got a great team down here. John Walker, Jeff Mathers, you know, our PT and our strength coach down here are taking care of me, and our food staff is killing it. I mean, we have a lot of good resources down here. The Mariners take care of us really well. So I mean, I'm making small strides, but they're strides nonetheless. And today was actually, I don't know if you probably can't tell, but today's the first day I got to use my right arm in the weight room. So
There we go.
I'm feeling a little bit on my high horse right now, being able to finally do some like 10-pound bicep curls. But
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Daily progressions.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you have a goal in mind? I know you're still pretty early on in the process, but do you kind of have a goal in mind for getting back on the bump?
I do. I have a date circled on my calendar, but I mean, the main thing is health is wealth. And I think that more than anything, I just have, you know, rather than a date circled on my calendar, I have the emphasis being on just being 100% healthy and listening to the people who have, you know, John Walker's done hundreds of these rehabs. So staying present, staying patient, and just trying to, you know, we talk about all the time, daily wins, and leaning on him, trusting him. He's had a lot of ball players and a lot of people tell him, hey, John, I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling this. And he has a wealth of knowledge in terms of how to adjust when he hears certain things that guys are feeling. So just communicating with him, and more than anything, like I said, just focusing on, you know, doing it right and coming back with full health. You know, there can be a lot of setbacks, and I've talked to a lot of guys who have been through this process, and not focusing too far down the road is good for the mind and good for the body. You know, you can't speed walk your way there. So taking care of what I need to on a daily basis and focusing on that is been my biggest focus.
So unfortunately, it's been a rough stretch here as of late for the Mariners, but they're still in the running for the postseason. What are your general thoughts on the club right now? I'm curious.
Man, I'm just rooting for them. You know, I went up there and visited them for the Dodgers series. It was, you know, tough series, but man, we're gritty, you know, and I think that the boys just, you know, we find a way. And, you know, we've been in this spot before, and I think that there's an element in that clubhouse where when your back's against the wall, you know, we come out, and I mean, we treat every game like it's the same. I know it's crunch time and it's, you know, game and a half back, and, you know, back is against the wall, but I think everyone kind of understands that, but at the same time, they do a really good job of treating the game like the first game of the season and the last game of the season. And that's, you know, ultimately, I think all you can do to prepare for the long run, 162 game season. And it takes a little bit of the pressure off. It's like you just go out there and have fun and compete. And if every game's the same, you don't have to turn it up a notch or rise to the occasion. I think that we just hold ourselves to that high standard. And but I am, I'm rooting them on. There's not much I can do from Arizona other than sending all the good vibes I can and rooting for them from afar.
Before I let you go, let's have some fun and do some rapid fire questions. Sound good?
Hit me.
All right. Funniest teammate?
Matt Festa.
Matt Festa. Ooh.
Without question. I'm trying to think of a sleeper pick though. I mean, we got some good funny dudes on that squad, but yeah, Matt Festa, he takes the cake. I mean,
There you go.
That guy's hysterical.
Filthiest pitch in the Mariners bullpen, and you can't pick yourself. I'm sorry.
I mean, Matt Brash throws some electric stuff up there. I'd say Matt Brash's slider or Andres Munoz fastball. Mooney's slider too. Those two guys, whatever's coming out of their hand, a lot of us wish we had. So, yeah.
That two-seamer that he's been throwing is
bro.
Pretty gnarly.
I just remember when I was hitting, and like 101 coming in on your thumbs. You're not just worried about your hands blowing up, but you're worried about fouling it off your foot or your shin, and I don't miss hitting at all.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare to face.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone makes contact with that. You mentioned earlier you love to play guitar. So one song you love to play on the guitar?
Yeah, Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix. That's what got me into playing guitar. That equally with Comfortably Numb, David Gilmour's solos in that, especially the second one. That's my walkout. It was my walkout this year. But yeah, that's what got me into guitar. I'd love to learn some Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. He played all finger, these three fingers pretty much, but he has such a unique style, and I think he would be worth learning and exploring a little bit.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you one song you wish you knew how to play / want to learn to play on the guitar, but I guess you already answered that.
Yeah, I think In the Gallery by Dire Straits has this solo, and Mark Knopfler lets out like when he hits a little lick, and I think he just knew that he was like, man, I'm in the zone, and like they kept it in the recording and everything. So yeah,
That's
I'd
awesome.
say that one.
All right, cool. And finally, very, very important question here. Best hair / facial hair on the Mariners. And again, you can't say yourself.
Best hair, I'm going Luis Castillo.
Ooh, that's a good pick, because there's some good hair on the ball club.
I'm a big fan of the Rastas, the dreadlocks. JP as well.
Yep.
Facial hair. It doesn't come out to play often, but when George Kirby gets the mustache,
ooh, the George Kirby stash.
it fits. That's what I'll say. So yeah,
I think he should go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Logan keeps on messing around with the goatee, no goatee. Like he's been doing that a lot this year. I think he finally settled on nothing, but I don't know. I feel like when the goatee comes out, Walter really comes out. Right?
Oh yeah, well, Walter's always there. Once you get to know Logan, it's always there. Cal, he's got a pretty consistent goatee. I think he's been rocking the beard a little while. Matt Brash, new beard guy. I'm big Matt Brash beard fan.
There you go.
But yeah, George Kirby mustache is a special occasion.
All right. I like that answer. Penn, thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate you. Looking forward to seeing you back on the bump soon. And hope everything goes well here with your auction. Take care, man.
Thank you, Ty. I really appreciate it. Go Mariners.
Go M's. That's going to do it for our show. Thank you to Penn Murfee for joining us here. And thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, CANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Astros tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast of SiriusXM via the SXM app. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.